The Academy of Records was not just a school. It was a temple where truth was carved, where the past was studied like scripture, and where the next leaders of the galaxy were trained. Its silver towers stretched so high they seemed to pierce the clouds, and its gates glowed with the light of thousands of stars. Students from 100 species filled the marble courtyards, their voices a mix of accents and strange sounds. Every young cadet who entered dreamed of leaving their own mark in history. But one student walked differently. She was human. Her steps were quiet as she moved between the tall bodies of scaled warriors, feathered scholars, and metallic-boned thinkers. Where others wore bright uniforms, polished and shining, hers looked plain. Where they held glowing tablets, she carried a single old book pressed against her chest. The cadets glanced at her with smirks and whispers. Some laughed openly, not even caring if she heard. But she never lowered her eyes. She kept walking, her jaw set, her gaze steady. That morning, the great hall of knowledge buzzed with energy. The ceiling arched high, painted with constellations of past wars. Rows of seats filled with cadets, each waiting for the lesson to begin. At the front, a massive wall of light stood ready to display the chronicles of history. Then, silence swept across the hall as their instructor entered. He was tall, his skin marked with ridges like carved stone. His robe of crimson trailed behind him, and his voice carried the weight of authority. He was feared, respected, and deeply proud of his people's victories. Most of all, he despised the idea that humans had any place in such a hall. Today, he began, his voice echoing, "We remember the age of wars." The glowing wall shifted, showing fleets burning across galaxies, alien banners rising above destroyed worlds, and the names of their champions written in bold letters. The cadets leaned forward, wide-eyed, as the instructor's words painted pictures of triumph and sacrifice. To them, it was more than history. It was proof of their greatness. The human girl sat still in the middle row, her hands on her book. She listened, but her eyes narrowed. She knew these names. She had read about these battles. But the story was not complete. Pieces of truth had been cut away, erased, buried deep in the archives. She had seen them. She carried proof with her now, hidden in the fragile pages of the book that no one else cared to read. The instructor's eyes scanned the hall, sharp as a hawk. Then he saw her. A slow, mocking smile spread across his face. He paused his lecture, letting the silence thicken until every eye turned toward her. "And then," he said, his voice dripping with scorn, "there are some who whisper that humans stood in these wars." His words were followed by a low wave of laughter from the cadets. "Humans, fragile, short-lived, and weak. Their bones break, their lives end too soon. Their minds are simple. Can such a species ever hope to rewrite history?" The laughter grew louder. Some cadets slapped their desks in amusement. Others pointed at her as if she were a strange creature in a cage. But she did not flinch. Her heart raced, yet her face remained calm. Her hand rested on the book, its edges worn, its cover cracked. The instructor walked closer, his robe sweeping the floor. He stopped just in front of her row, his sneer sharp as a knife. "Look at her silence," he said loudly so all could hear. "Even she knows it. A human cannot stand here. A human cannot claim their name in our eternal records. History belongs to the strong." He lifted his hand toward the wall, where the alien names glowed brighter, filling the room with their light. "It belongs to us." The hall roared with laughter again, but this time it carried a strange edge. Some cadets looked uneasy. They saw her sitting straight, unbroken, her eyes calm in the storm of mockery. Her stillness unsettled them more than any outburst could have. She touched the book, feeling the weight of it. Inside were words that could shake this hall. Inside was the proof no one wanted to see, a truth buried beneath centuries of pride. She whispered inside her own heart, "Not today, but soon." The bell rang, a deep sound that ended the lecture. The cadets stood, still chuckling, their voices filling the air as they left. The instructor left with a proud smile, convinced he had once again reminded them of their place. But the human girl stayed seated, her hand firm on the book. She looked at the glowing wall one last time, where alien names still burned. Her lips moved in a whisper so soft it was swallowed by the noise around her. History already remembers. And one day you will too. Then she rose, walking out of the hall with quiet steps, carrying the fire of truth pressed against her chest. None of them noticed how steady her gaze was, but soon they would. The next morning, the great hall filled once again with the sound of footsteps and restless voices. The air carried the sharp scent of metal from alien armor and the faint hum of floating datapads. The cadets settled into their rows, their laughter still fresh from yesterday's mockery. They had repeated the instructor's words to one another all night. A human cannot rewrite history. As if it were a joke too good to let die. The human girl walked in quietly, the old book still held close. She did not rush and she did not hide. Her plain uniform seemed even smaller among the shining robes and polished scales around her. But she did not lower her head. When she sat in the middle row, the whispers began again. "Why is she here?" one cadet muttered. "She should study myths, not history," another sneered. "Maybe she wants to pretend her kind ever mattered." The human girl ignored them. Her eyes stayed on the front, waiting for the lesson to begin. The instructor entered with the same heavy pride, his crimson robe trailing across the floor like flowing blood. He raised his long hand, and the glowing wall flickered to life. Battlefields stretched across it, flames, steel, and banners of alien empires. His voice filled the hall, deep and commanding. "Today," he said, "we continue our study of the Age of Wars. And today you will see the victories that shaped the galaxy." The cadets leaned forward eagerly. The wall shifted to show soldiers standing tall, their alien faces marked with scars of honor. Names appeared under each image, names carved into history like stone. "These were the champions," the instructor declared. "They defended civilization when chaos rose from the void. They carried the weight of survival on their backs. And because of them, we stand here today." The hall buzzed with awe. The cadets repeated the names, practicing their proper pronunciation, as if even saying them was a duty. But the human girl sat still, her hand gently brushing the cover of her book. She had read the Academy's archives, dusty files tucked away in corners others had forgotten. The story the instructor told was not wrong, but it was incomplete. She remembered one file, hidden in the deepest section of the archive. It described a strategist who had turned an entire war with nothing but numbers and logic. The file had been stamped with the Academy seal, proof of authenticity. But the strategist's name had been removed. She knew why. That strategist was human. The instructor continued, his voice sharper now. He glanced at her again, as if daring her to speak. "Our ancestors stood alone," he declared. "No other species had the courage. No other species had the wisdom. And most certainly, no human could have guided them." Laughter rippled again, though weaker than before. Some cadets looked at the human girl, waiting for her reaction. She sat motionless, her calm expression hiding the storm inside her. Finally, one brave cadet raised a hand. His scales shimmered in the light as he spoke. "Instructor, what of the rumors? Some records mention outsiders in those wars." The instructor's eyes hardened. He turned slowly, his robe whispering against the floor. "Lies," he said flatly. "Weak species spread such tales to feel important. History belongs to those who earned it." He lifted his hand again, and the wall blazed with images of alien heroes. "Do not let false words confuse you." The cadets nodded quickly, eager to show loyalty. But the human girl's lips curved into the smallest of smiles. She knew the question had planted a seed of doubt. The instructor's gaze cut to her like a blade. "Human," he said, his voice dripping with contempt. "Perhaps you believe these rumors? Do you imagine your kind shaped the Age of Wars?" The hall grew silent. Every eye turned to her. The girl rose slowly, the old book in her hands. She stood straight, her calm voice carrying across the hall. "I don't believe in rumors," she said. "I believe in records. And records don't lie." Gasps filled the hall. The cadets looked between her and the instructor, unsure of what would happen next. The instructor sneered, his voice low but sharp. Records? What records could you possibly have? Nothing of humans is written in these halls. Her hand tightened on the book. She felt its weight like a heartbeat. Not in the words you choose to show, she replied, but in the words you tried to hide. The hall froze. The cadets whispered in shock, their voices low and nervous. The instructor's face darkened with anger. For the first time, his control of the room faltered. He laughed, though it was hollow. Do you dare claim you can rewrite our history? Do you think your kind can stand equal to us? Her answer came calmly, without fear. I don't need to rewrite history. Your own history has already written me. The hall fell silent, the words cutting through the air like lightning. The cadets stared, some with disbelief, some with curiosity, and some with a flicker of doubt. The instructor's lips curled into a bitter smile. Then show us, he said, if you dare. The challenge hung in the air, heavy as stone. The human girl lowered her eyes briefly to the book in her hands. She had waited for this moment, and now it had arrived. The hall was silent after her words. The glow from the wall reflected on every alien face. Their eyes locked on the small human girl who stood with the book pressed against her chest. For a moment, even the hum of the academy's floating lamps felt quieter. The instructor narrowed his eyes, his voice heavy with contempt. Show us, then, he said slowly. If you claim history has written your kind, then let us see what you carry. Let us see if your book holds more than dust and lies. The cadets stirred, their whispers rising like restless winds. Some looked curious, eager to see the confrontation. Others grinned, expecting her humiliation. A few glanced nervously at the instructor, sensing his anger was more than usual. The human girl did not flinch. She stepped forward, her steps small but steady. The book in her hands looked fragile, its cover cracked and its pages yellowed. Against the glowing technology of the academy, it seemed ancient, almost laughable. And yet, she held it with the care of something priceless. This book, she said, her voice clear, was passed down through generations. My grandmother gave it to me before I came here. She told me it carried truth the galaxy had forgotten. And in the archives of this very academy, I found what matched it. Your records confirmed what you tried to bury. The whispers grew louder. A tall cadet with blue skin scoffed. Stories from an old human woman? You dare bring that into the Academy of Records? Another hissed. She's mocking us. She wants to play with children's tales. The instructor raised his hand, silencing them all. His eyes burned as he stared at her. Enough talk. If you claim this truth exists, prove it. Open your book and show us history. The girl hesitated, her hand resting on the fragile cover. Her heart pounded. She had waited for this moment, but she knew the risk. If the book failed, if the records did not connect as they had before, she would be shamed forever. But if it worked, if the truth revealed itself, then the walls of the academy would never stand the same again. Slowly, she placed the book on the glowing table at the center of the hall. The academy's systems were designed to read and connect all written words, no matter how old. The glowing wall above flickered, waiting for input. She opened the book. At first, the pages looked simple. Ink fading with time, words scratched by hand. The cadets leaned forward, many ready to laugh. But then the table glowed, threads of light spreading across the pages. The academy system recognized the text, pulling it into the wall. The glowing wall shifted, words and names rewriting themselves in real time. The cadets gasped. The familiar list of alien heroes shimmered, as if unsure of itself. A name disappeared, another blurred. Then, slowly, a new name began to appear at the bottom, letters sharp, glowing brighter than the rest. It was a human name. The silence was absolute. The cadets stared in disbelief. Some rubbed their eyes, certain it was a trick. The instructor's jaw tightened, his ridged face pale. He moved quickly to the controls, trying to override the projection. But the system refused. The record had authenticated itself. The seal of the academy glowed beside the name, undeniable proof of truth. The girl's voice rose into the silence, calm and steady. This is not a lie. This is your own history, buried, hidden, forgotten, but still alive. The cadets shifted, their expressions a storm of emotions. Some looked angry, unwilling to believe. Others looked uncertain, their confidence cracking. A few stared at the glowing name with wide eyes, as if seeing a ghost from the past. One cadet whispered, How can this be?" Another muttered, "If this is true, what else have we been denied?" The instructor slammed his hand against the console, his voice booming. "This is a mistake, a corruption of data, nothing more." But his words rang hollow. Everyone had seen the seal. Everyone knew the system did not lie. The girl looked at him directly, her eyes steady. "It is no mistake. You can erase names from walls, but you cannot erase them from truth." The cadets erupted into murmurs, the hall shaking with their confusion and fear. The authority of the instructor, so strong just moments ago, now cracked under the weight of doubt. He glared at her, his pride burning with rage. "Do you think," he growled, "that one human name will change anything? Do you think you can stand here and challenge centuries of glory?" She placed her hand firmly on the book, her voice stronger now. "I don't need to change your centuries. I only need to remind you that we were there, that humans stood beside you, fought with you, and saved you. History is not yours alone." The cadets fell silent again. Her words hung heavy in the air, echoing against the high ceilings. For the first time, many of them looked at her not with laughter, but with something else, hesitation. The instructor's hands shook as he turned back to the wall, desperate to erase the projection. But the human name remained, glowing brighter than all the rest. The girl knew this was only the beginning. She had shown them the crack in their pride, but the storm was still coming. The academy would fight back. The instructor would not rest. Yet for the first time, she felt the fire of truth burning not just in her chest, but in the eyes of those who watched her. And she whispered softly, to herself and to the hall, "History speaks louder than lies." The hall trembled with silence. The glowing wall stood like a witness, its shifting letters refusing to obey the instructor's commands. For centuries, the Academy of Records had been untouchable. Its words were law, its scripts eternal. Yet now, before an entire hall of cadets, the wall displayed something it was never meant to show. A human name sealed with the Academy's mark of truth. The cadets sat frozen. Some leaned forward in disbelief, their mouths open. Others pulled back, as though the sight itself was dangerous. A whisper rose in the back row, shaky and uncertain. "It cannot be false. The seal is there." Another voice followed, louder. "The system does not lie." The human girl kept her eyes on the projection. Her hands pressed gently on the book as if steadying it, though in truth, she was steadying herself. Her heart raced, but her voice when it came was calm. "This," she said, her words echoing in the hushed room, "is not my story. It is yours. Your own system has confirmed it. You tried to hide this name, but history does not vanish. Truth waits." Her words fell like drops of fire. The cadets shifted in their seats, their earlier laughter gone. Some avoided her gaze. Others stared at her as if seeing her for the first time. Not as an outsider, but as someone standing in the center of their sacred hall, challenging the foundations of what they believed. The instructor's voice finally broke the silence, sharp and furious. "No!" he roared, his ridged hands slamming against the console. "This is corruption. This is a trick, a forgery planted by those who envy our greatness." He turned to the cadets, his voice heavy with authority. "Do not believe this lie. Our ancestors fought alone. They bled for this galaxy while humans hid on their weak little world. This," he pointed a trembling finger at the glowing human name, "is an insult to them." But even as he shouted, his voice did not carry the same unshakable weight as before. The cadets had seen the seal. They had watched the system pull the words from the book itself, matching them with archived fragments buried deep. Doubt had entered their minds, and doubt was stronger than denial. A brave cadet in the front row raised his hand. His scales shimmered nervously, but his voice was steady. "Instructor," he asked, "if this is false, then why does the system confirm it? Why does the seal appear?" The instructor's jaw tightened. He gave no answer, only a glare that silenced the boy. The girl stepped forward, her voice low but firm. "You ask why? Because the truth was buried but never erased. My ancestor's name was part of your records. You hid it. You rewrote your books. But the system remembers. It always remembers." She lifted the book, its fragile pages glowing faintly under the Academy's light. "This is what my grandmother gave me. She said it was proof, but I did not believe her until I found the fragments in your own library. This book was never meant to challenge you. It was meant to complete you, to remind you that in those wars, humans stood not behind you, but beside you." The cadets stirred again, their whispers growing louder, no longer full of mockery but of questions. "Is it true?" one asked. "Could they have hidden this from us?" Another muttered. The sound spread through the hall, a rising storm of doubt. The instructor slammed his hand once more, his voice a roar. "Enough! You will not question the words I have taught you. This academy is built on truth. I am truth." But the human girl did not retreat. She looked directly into his burning eyes. Her voice was calm, almost gentle. "No, instructor. Truth does not belong to you. Truth belongs to history." Her words struck like thunder. The cadets went silent again, waiting, watching. The tension in the room felt heavy, as if even the air struggled to move. The instructor's hands trembled with rage. For the first time, his certainty seemed broken. He turned back to the wall, desperately trying to override the projection again, his claws tapping across glowing symbols. But the human name refused to disappear. The seal glowed brighter, as though the system itself rejected his denial. Finally, the girl spoke again, her voice steady, filled with quiet strength. "You cannot erase what is already written. You cannot silence what has already been spoken. My ancestor stood in your war, not as a servant, but as a savior. And now the galaxy will know." The cadets sat stunned. The truth had been shown, undeniable and raw. Some still looked afraid to believe. Others looked at her with a new kind of respect, their earlier laughter gone. The girl stood tall in the silence, her small figure seeming larger than the towering instructor. The book lay open on the glowing table, its pages alive with light. On the wall, her ancestor's name burned, unshakable, as if carved into the very fabric of time. And for the first time in the Academy's long history, a human voice had forced the Hall of Records to listen. The hall felt heavier than stone. Every cadet sat frozen, their eyes shifting between the glowing human name on the wall and the instructor's pale, ridged face. For the first time in their young lives, the stories they had memorized, the lessons they had repeated, no longer felt untouchable. The human girl stood silently, the old book still glowing faintly on the table. Her presence was calm, but the silence she created was louder than any battle cry. The cadets whispered among themselves, their voices carrying unease. "Why is the seal there if it is false? The system never lies. Could it be true? Did they really hide this from us?" The instructor's hands clenched the edge of the console until his knuckles turned white. His voice, once powerful and sharp, now cracked with anger. "Fools," he spat. "Do not let a trick deceive you. Do you think one name makes humans equal to us? Do you think they shaped history? They were weak then, and they are weak now." But the words did not strike the same way as before. The cadets no longer laughed. Some still nodded quickly, desperate to hold on to certainty, but many sat still, doubt pressing into their faces. A young cadet in the back, his armor dull from training, raised his hand hesitantly. His voice trembled as he spoke. "Instructor, if this was hidden, then why? Who chose to bury this name?" The hall turned to him. It was a dangerous question, one that touched the heart of the Academy's pride. The instructor's eyes blazed with fury. "Silence!" he roared, his voice echoing off the high walls. You dare question your elders? You dare question the blood of your ancestors? The cadet lowered his gaze, his hands shaking. But the question had already escaped into the air. Once spoken, it could not be unsaid. The human girl's voice rose into the silence, steady and unbroken. He asks because he feels what all of you feel. If this is false, then why does your own system defend it? If it is true, then why was it hidden? You deserve an answer, even if he will not give it to you. Gasps rippled across the hall. Her words were bold, too bold for a human in this sacred place. And yet, none could deny their power. The instructor stepped toward her, his robe dragging like a shadow. His voice was low, dangerous. You dare challenge me in my hall? You dare turn these cadets against me? But she did not step back. She looked at him with steady eyes. I am not turning them. Truth is. His rage broke. With a sudden movement, he slammed his hand against the console again, trying to force the wall to erase the human name. Sparks flared. The glow dimmed. But the name remained, brighter than before. The seal of the academy pulsed like a heartbeat, undeniable, unbreakable. The cadets leaned back, their eyes wide. Some looked at the girl with awe now, their pride cracking under the weight of proof. She was right, one whispered. They hid it from us, another muttered. If they lied about this, what else is buried? The storm of whispers grew louder, a wave of confusion and fear. The instructor spun to face them, his voice desperate. No, do not listen to her. She seeks to divide you, to weaken you. Humans are nothing. They have always been nothing. But his words no longer carried the same strength. The cadet's eyes betrayed him. Uncertain, questioning, broken from blind loyalty. The girl lifted her book again, her voice rising above the storm. You call humans nothing, yet your own history shows otherwise. My ancestor stood in your wars, not as a servant, but as a strategist who saved thousands. Without him, you would not have the peace you praise today. You mock me for being human, but it was a human who carried you to victory. The hall fell silent again. Her words hung heavy, pressing into every mind. The cadets stared at the glowing name, now burning into their memories. The instructor's body trembled with rage. His pride, the foundation of his power, was crumbling before his own students. He pointed at her with a shaking hand. You will regret this, he hissed. You will regret bringing this book into my hall. But the girl's face did not change. She looked at him as if his threats were nothing compared to the truth in her hands. You cannot threaten truth, she said softly. The cadets exchanged glances. Many no longer saw her as an outsider. Some looked at her with respect, others with fear, but none with laughter. For the first time, the walls of the academy echoed not with certainty, but with doubt. The pride of their history had cracked, and through that crack, the light of hidden truth had begun to shine. The instructor stood trembling, caught between fury and fear. The cadets sat in silence, their faith shaken. And the human girl held her book close, knowing this was only the beginning. The storm had just started, and she would need all her strength to survive what was coming next. The hall no longer felt like the same place. Yesterday it had been filled with laughter and blind obedience. Today it was heavy with silence, broken only by the whispers of cadets who could no longer look at the glowing wall without unease. The human name still shined there, burning bright against centuries of alien pride. The human girl stood in the center, her book close to her chest. Her eyes were calm, but inside her chest her heart thundered. She knew what she had done was dangerous, but she also knew it could not be undone. The truth had been revealed, and truth had a power even stronger than the academy's walls. The instructor paced across the floor, his crimson robe swaying like a shadow. His face, once full of arrogant confidence, now twitched with anger and fear. His voice cut across the room, sharp and desperate. You sit there in silence as if this human has spoken wisdom, he spat. But she has spoken poison. A single name does not erase centuries of victory. A single human cannot stand against the weight of our ancestors. Some cadets nodded quickly, trying to show loyalty. But many kept their heads low. Doubt had entered their hearts, and it refused to leave. One cadet stood slowly. His feathers trembled as he spoke, his voice uncertain but strong enough to be heard. "Instructor, we were taught the academy cannot lie. If the system confirmed this record, then it means the truth was hidden. Why would our history need to be changed?" The question spread like lightning. Murmurs filled the hall. Yes. Why was it buried? If they hid this, what else is missing? Can we trust any of the names on the wall? The instructor's fury erupted. "Enough!" he roared. His voice shook the walls, but it did not shake the cadets the way it once had. His control was slipping. His authority, once unbreakable, now cracked under the weight of their questions. The human girl stepped forward, her small frame steady against the storm. She raised her book high, her voice carrying clearly. "Your pride blinded you. You hid our names because you feared them. You wanted history to belong only to you, but truth does not belong to one race. Truth belongs to all." Her words pierced the silence, leaving nothing but raw tension behind. Some cadets looked at her with awe. Others clenched their fists, torn between loyalty and reason. For the first time, the human girl was not invisible. She was the center, and every eye was forced to see her. The instructor turned on her, his voice low and dangerous. "You think you can speak as if you are our equal? You think your words matter here?" Her answer was quiet, but it carried through the hall like thunder. "My words do not matter. History's words do." She pointed to the wall, where her ancestor's name glowed with the seal of truth. The cadets could not look away. That name had become a mirror, showing them a reflection they had never expected to see. The storm inside them grew. Doubt turned to conflict turned to fear. Their minds fought against what their eyes showed them, and in that fight, the instructor's authority crumbled further. A cadet with silver eyes rose suddenly, his voice loud. "If this is true, then all of us have been taught lies since birth. How can the academy claim to guard truth when it hides it?" The hall erupted again, voices colliding, some in anger, some in confusion, some in fear. The whispers had turned into shouts. "Lies! Deception! Have we been betrayed?" The instructor slammed his hand against the console, desperate to silence them. "You will obey me," he shouted. "You will obey the records I give you, not the delusions of a human child." But the wall betrayed him. No matter how many commands he entered, the human name remained, glowing brighter, stronger, as if the academy itself refused to bend to his will. The girl's voice cut through the storm like a blade. "You can shout all you want, but the truth is not yours to command." Her calmness, her steady gaze, it unnerved them all. She was small, fragile, human. Yet in that hall she stood taller than the instructor himself. The cadets stared at her, their pride crumbling, their certainty lost. For the first time, some of them looked at her not with laughter or pity, but with respect. She had done what none of them had dared. She had made the academy itself reveal its buried secret. The instructor's rage boiled over. His voice shook with venom. "You dare speak of respect? You dare stand here and mock centuries of honor? You are nothing, and I will make sure the academy remembers you as nothing." But his threats felt weak now. His words no longer carried the power they once had. The cadets could see the fear in him. They could see that the one who had always claimed to protect truth was now trying to bury it again. The human girl lowered her book slowly, her eyes never leaving his. "You may try to bury me, but you cannot bury history. You cannot bury my ancestor's name. And you cannot bury the truth that stands before you." The storm inside the hall reached its peak. Voices rose, the cadets torn between belief and denial. The instructor trembled with rage, powerless before a single human girl. And she, calm in the chaos, knew that the war for truth had only just begun. The storm inside the hall had reached its height. Cadets argued in sharp voices, their disbelief crashing against the glowing wall that refused to obey their instructor. The human name, bright and undeniable, pulsed like a living flame. It was no longer just a word. It was a wound in their pride, and also a light none of them could look away from. The instructor stood at the front, his hands trembling, his robe hanging heavy on his shoulders. His voice, once so powerful, now broke with desperation. You will not believe this lie. You will not let one fragile human shatter centuries of honor. But his words fell flat. His students no longer sat in neat obedience. Some leaned forward with anger, some leaned back in shock, and some looked at the human girl with wide eyes filled not with pity, but with respect. The girl stood still in the middle of it all. The book pressed against her chest no longer seemed fragile. It seemed stronger than the walls themselves. She looked at the wall, at her ancestor's name glowing bright, and then at the cadets. Her voice was soft, but it carried across the hall like a bell. You can deny me, you can insult me, but you cannot erase what is written. This academy was built to protect truth, and today it has spoken. Her words struck deeper than the instructor's shouts. The cadets whispered to each other, their voices full of uncertainty. If this is true, she is right. The seal does not lie. It cannot. Then history belongs to all, not just us. The instructor's fury boiled over. He stepped toward her, his voice sharp as a blade. You think this makes you equal to us? You think your kind belongs here? The girl lifted her head. Her eyes shone with quiet fire. We do not need your permission to belong. History already gave us our place, and you cannot take it away. Gasps spread across the hall. No one had ever spoken to him like this. No alien, no cadet, no outsider. Only a human girl who carried an old book and unshakable courage. The instructor turned back to the console, his hands desperate as he tried again to erase the name. Sparks flared, lights flickered, but the wall resisted. The seal grew brighter, covering the hall with its glow. The system itself refused his command. The truth was stronger than his will. Finally, he stopped, his shoulders slumped, his pride shattered. He turned slowly to the cadets, but they no longer looked at him with loyalty. They looked at him with doubt, some even with disgust. The girl stepped forward, her voice steady. This is not about me. This is not even about my ancestor. This is about truth. You built your academy on lies, but the truth has found its way back. You can fight it, but it will not change. You can bury it, but it will rise again. Her words fell heavy in the silence. One by one, cadets lowered their eyes, no longer able to argue. Some clenched their fists, ashamed of their laughter from the days before. Others looked at her with something new in their faces. Respect, even admiration. At last, one cadet stood. His voice trembled, but he spoke loud enough for all to hear. If this is truth, then we must face it. We cannot call ourselves guardians of history if we choose to hide it. Another cadet followed, her feathers rustling as she rose. The human girl is right. History is not ours alone. It belongs to all who lived it. The instructor's face twisted with rage. He tried to speak, but no words came. His power, his control, his authority, all had been taken from him not by force, but by truth. The girl placed her hand on the glowing table. The wall flared brighter, her ancestor's name shining as if carved into the very heart of the academy. For the first time in its long history, the great hall bowed not to power or arrogance, but to truth. She looked at the cadets, her voice calm, almost gentle. Remember this day, not because I spoke, not because you doubted, but because history revealed itself. One day you will stand where I stand, and you will be asked to choose. Choose truth, even if it frightens you. The hall was silent again. No laughter, no mocking whispers, only the weight of her words and the glow of the wall. Slowly, she closed her book. Its cover, cracked and worn, seemed almost alive in her hands. She held it close to her chest, her heart steady now. The cadets watched her in silence, and in their eyes, she was no longer just a human girl. She was something more. The instructor lowered his gaze, his voice barely a whisper. History will not forgive this. The girl answered softly, History has already spoken. And with that, She turned and walked out of the hall. Her steps were quiet, but they carried louder than the instructor's shouts. Behind her, the cadets sat in silence, staring at the wall where her ancestor's name still glowed, refusing to fade. For the first time in the Academy's long life, the eternal records had changed. And so had every heart in the hall.